Shooting a music video is always a how long is a piece of string type of question when it comes to budgeting. But no matter how long the string, you can guarantee it won't be enough. Not long ago, we took a look into the process, budgets, work undertaken, favours pulled behind a £2,500 budget music video. This week, I wanted to share the process behind a slightly larger scale production. This was a mammoth job. It was the pinnacle of what I call a passion project for me. 4 months prior to the shoot, I was approached by my now good friend Marcel, who works as a creative director alongside his multi-talented wife and, in this instance, pop star Fleur East. He'd seen something I'd done that he liked and was keen to get me involved in creating a short musical film to coincide with the release of Fleur's new album. We started with Marcel sending me over a few references, along with the chosen tracks from the album that needed to be included. I then spent a few days pulling together a treatment. On researching more about Fleur, I came to learn that she had a sister, Kesha. And when made up right, Kesha made a very good body double for Fleur herself. This got me thinking along the lines of having more than one Fleur character in this film. I started researching Roman and Greek gods with split personalities and found myself down a path somewhere between Roman mythology and the Charles Dickens Christmas Carol story. And after getting sign-off on the idea, it was time to start making it a reality. Creatively, they were very open to whatever I wanted to do. They liked my work and they trusted me, and that was a really nice position to be in. The budget for this was £30,000. That's approximately $42,000. So not a bad budget for a music video, but we were in essence making 7 music videos in one. So then again, not particularly great either. To reiterate from the previous process we looked at, I don't like producing. On this one, however, I did have some help from 2 producing legends named Ray and Frankie, but still ended up having to do the bulk of the producing myself, as after I'd done an initial costing, to achieve what we needed to achieve, the budget wasn't going to stretch enough to allow paying the producers or even the director, me. I'd initially budgeted to bring on a much better DOP than I. But as the location costs started to come in, the budget shifted from having initially paid the producers, myself, a DOP, to not. This isn't uncommon in music videos. It's not an everyday occurrence, but it's definitely not an unusual thing for the director to make no money in the process of trying to create something great. Did we do that? In some respects, yes. In many, probably not. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Here's what the final budget looked like. Equipment rental, £4,216.26. Insurance, £485. This included public liability as well as gear rental insurance. First AC for 3 days, £1,095. Camera trainee, £450. Steady op, £3,000. Gaffer, £1,200. 2 sparks, £1,260. Art director, £750. Dressing and props budget, £900. Choreographer, assistant, dancers, £1,800. Sound op, now this was just for 2 days. I could save a little bit here. £700. Makeup artist, £1,050. Hairstylist, another £1,050. A runner driver at £750. Edit, £1,050. Grade, £1,000. Locations budget, £3,714. Catering, £679.74. Casting, £2,380. Fire effects, £750. The ever-important drives and backup drives, £291. Smoke effects rental, that was 3 R10 machines for £179. Van rental, car rental, fuel, parking tickets, I'll go into more on that later, £1,250. You should know there's no markups here. No fee for the 3 producers, no fee for the director, no fee for the cinematographer. 90% of the crew are not on full rate and none of the cast are being generously paid. I have 3 crews staying at my house over the weekend to save on fuel and accommodation costs, and a bunch of the lighting kit being used on set is mine, and I'm not charging anything for it. The crew were made up of various regulars of mine. For casting, the lead child was a fan of Fleur's she'd met at a show up north. Her double was played by her sister, and everyone else, the dancers aside, was sourced from castings I posted on mandy.com. Locations I found via shout-outs on TV and film location Facebook groups. Permits were an expensive pain in the arse and not an enjoyable part of the process. Art department was largely outsourced to an art director I'd worked with a couple of times before. Styling was handled by Marcel. The plan was to shoot everything over 3 days. We were starting late on the Friday due to the artist's availability around her other commitments, but this ended up working out well for us as it meant we didn't have to black out windows, which would have been tricky with our crew and budget, as we were shooting in a listed building which came with a number of restrictions, both inside and out. The first major challenge to hit while shooting was a call from the owner of the apartment we were meant to be shooting in the following morning, as well as using it as a unit base, saying that there had been too many objections from neighbours as a result of a bad experience from another shoot in the area a few weeks earlier, and we would no longer be able to film there or use it as a production base. Not the stress anyone needs, but particularly not whilst directing, DPing and producing. My 2 unpaid helping producer hands, Frankie and Ray, had both ended up getting paying gigs last minute, so I was on my own to sort out any issues like this that cropped up. The solution turned out to be in the generous donation of the flat of our choreographer, who just so happened to live less than 15 minutes from the main location for the day. Still not ideal, because it meant 2 load-ins and 2 load-outs rather than 1, as well as a unit move eating into our schedule, and we were out a unit base for the estate we were to be shooting on. But it was the best option available. I'd already spent 2 separate occasions knocking on the doors of every flat I could find in the area, and people were not welcoming. Largely thanks to the inconsideration of a crew that had been filming on the estate a few weeks earlier on another music promo in the middle of the night. As a whole though, the first day went well. In a stark contrast, the second day, shooting scenes on an estate in North London was, and still stands as, the worst shooting day of my career so far to date. Even before the loss of our on-site location and production base, it was an ambitious day with a lot of moving parts. We had talent, child actors, parents, extras, security, which was a requirement to get the necessary permit to shoot there, a 30-piece choir, crew, a special effects department to deal with the fire the scene was supposed to revolve around, as well as the autumnal British weather to contend with. Just reliving it now is really stressing me out. I got the crew to position themselves below an underpass within the estate in case the weather turned, where security would mind the kit whilst I spoke to cast, extras, special effects, the steady op, and my gaffer to let everyone know what it was we were supposed to be actually doing. So many questions from everyone that I no longer had the answers to on account of the now delayed schedule as a result of the unit move and lack of production base. The light wasn't right, the low-budget child cast that we're in just for this one scene that I hadn't had an opportunity to rehearse with were not naturals. The special effects guy is hassling me for his money, saying his boss won't be happy if he doesn't get paid in cash, and I was only meant to be here until 5, it's 2:45 now. Then, it started to f***ing rain. I'm trying to make it work in the underpass, but it's just not. The choir is still standing around and everyone is still asking new questions. Producing, DPing, location managing, and directing on this scale is just simply not possible. Don't try it. We're losing the light. The light is lost. The day, the most expensive day, with security, permits, cast, special effects, is an absolute write-off. I headed back to mine on the other side of London with 3 other crew members to have a curry and moan about how terrible everything was, before finishing the following day's call sheet and going to bed just after midnight ahead of our 5 AM start the next day. And breathe. The third day was better. The weather was banging. We had 3 locations, 2 unit moves, and 4 scenes to shoot, all in a 12-hour day. What went right? The shots for the most part. I've been scratching my head the night before about how we might be able to salvage the scenes that were meant to take place on the Saturday. So we picked up a number of bits along the way that weren't initially on the schedule. What went wrong? Because you knew there was more to come. The off-road free parking I'd scouted for the second location turned out to be private property. This wasn't revealed until a couple of weeks later, adding several £100s worth of parking tickets to my expenses. As the budget didn't allow for proper catering, I was doing mass orders via Deliveroo each day for the cast and crew, as well as sending the poor runner-driver out each morning to get drinks and snacks for everyone. Turns out ordering food for that many people, even if it is several hours in advance, is overwhelming for the restaurants. And this meant that lunch was 2.5 hours late on the Sunday. An unhappy crew does not make for good filmmaking. Whilst we were waiting, I set out shooting as much of the handheld work by myself and an even more minimal crew that I could afford. Namely, my favourite spark, Harry. Thanks, Harry. For the final scene of the day, I did have my producer friend Ray stop by in his off hours to lend a hand. But this late in the day, it didn't magically help to catch everything back up, but it was nice to have someone to share the stresses with.
How have you been finding the shoot so far?
It's been ups and downs, highs and lows. Friday was a high, Saturday was a low, and now we're back up on Sunday. I gotta tell you how it is, I can't lie. Saturday afternoon was a real shitter. As a result of the late lunch and things going as things go on shoots, talent taking forever in hair and makeup between setups, we ran late, which meant the very last setup of the day, after I had to wrap 95% of the crew, was very rushed and far from ideal. But nevertheless, I had something, which is normally better than not. I returned my rental car late on the Sunday evening and headed home for a celebratory Shake Shack milkshake for a not so early night before flying to Berlin for a shoot the following day. The edit was over to a far better editor than I, one Taylor Fawcett, who at the time had been editing more and more work for me on these sorts of jobs, collaboration being key and all of that. I could only afford 3 days of Taylor's time, but he was pumped for the project and knew how much work had gone in elsewhere. So as long as we were being patient and flexible with his time, he'd get it done and work his magic. A patient month or so later, and unfortunately, no amount of Taylor magic could salvage the steaming pile of poop that was the estate filming day. I scratched my head for some days and finally came up with a solution that I could do for minimal budget that would salvage the piece and still work as an adjoining scene. We could also use this as an opportunity to give the cast scene the time it hadn't been able to receive on the shoot. We'd shoot at my house as a free location, using my lighting and no crew except for myself, as I'd be able to set everything up the day before. So all I'd need was some budget to cover cast fees and the camera kit. I took the idea to Flir's people, but they simply couldn't afford to spend any more money on this project. The budget just wasn't there. After some discussion, they agreed to cover cast, hair and makeup. I dug into my own pocket to cover the kit. So now this £30,000 music promo that I wasn't making any money from was costing me £1,200 and a month of my life. The pickup shoot went well though. I just wish it was the route I'd gone down and the approach I'd taken in the first place, rather than trying to be overambitious and shoot for the stars on an EasyJet budget. I could have saved myself a lot of headache and maybe even made some money from the job. That generally wasn't why I was doing it though. That wasn't already clear. This was going to be a piece I was proud of, something I wanted to show off, and would hopefully reap the benefits from via that dreaded word, exposure. For the grade, with the help of charming Ray, I managed to bag my favourite colourist, Jax Harney, for a fraction of what the agency she was working for at the time's usual costs. £1,000 for a full day in a Soho production house with someone of Jack's talents on a 15-minute video is an absolute steal. Again, we had to be flexible with timing, but time was on our side. There was to be a premiere for the film, which would also act as the album launch. A load of Fleur's fans, the label, and everyone that worked on the production would be there, and the short would get the exposure it deserved. But 5 days before the premiere, Fleur's dad sadly passed away. Then, simultaneously, COVID hit, and we went into lockdown, so the campaign never actually took off. The album came out, and the video was released to next to no one. You can view it here. I'm still super proud of it. But did all that hard, unpaid work pay off? In satisfaction only. A real nice piece of my cinematography reel, but sadly, not a lot else. Oh well. You can't win them all, and many lessons were learned. Primarily, stop dreaming bigger than the budget allows for. I hope that was insightful, and maybe even a little bit helpful. Give me a like below to let me know you made it this far, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more semi-helpful tips and interesting insider industry knowledge.